and
Fabulous.
bizarrely, yeah, it's all very odd, I have to tell you. But anyway, sorry.
Here we are. We're gonna power on through. Welcome everyone to today's Live Well Live webinar. Today we're talking about stressing less and weighing less, mastering our stress for weight loss. My name is Dr. Samantha Wellapilly. I am a GP. I'm also a nutritionist and a yoga therapist and a coach. And I am obsessed with looking at our health, our weight loss, the things that feed into our long-term well-being in a holistic fashion. And I know that my colleague Ruth is also similarly obsessed. And she's going to say hello.
I am. I'm very also similarly confused today. I'm so sorry, everyone, for any confusion that I am displaying. It's all very, very strange. Very warm welcome. Just to remind anyone who has not been here before, that we start by sharing some slides with you. Hopefully, you can see the slides. I'm feeling confused because normally that's what I can see as well, and for some reason today I can't. So please do let us know in the chat box if you can see the slides fine, and that would be very reassuring at this point in time. Just to let you know, we start with a slide share. We're going to talk a little bit about stress and why this is such an important element. Thanks, Julia, for letting me know. And then we come to your questions and answers. We're trialing Slido today, so do bear with us. And if you get a little pop up on your screen saying, would you like to join Slido, then please do say yes. There's no sign in, buy in, or QR code that you need to do. You just need to say yes as far as we know. And we will check in with you as to whether this has been a benefit or otherwise in your experience today. So I'm going to start by asking you this question. So let's see how we go. How's your week been, everyone? Have you had a good week, a bad week? You can score it on a whatever you like. Just tell us one word to describe your week. We're really interested. It's obviously Monday, so we're talking about the week that we've just had. So, how has it been? Mine's been quite stressful. So I guess I could put that in. Great so far. Great to hear that. I think we can even share these on the screen. Um, so let's see. Let's see. How are we getting on? Can you see this now, everyone? So can you see that
I can't see anything, Ruth.
down in the right-hand side of your screen, you may be able to see. So let's see. Let's just see how it goes. It should be fun, but it might just prove to be too much effort and not enough fun. So let's see how we go.
Oh, we've got a few things on there. Okay, I had to enter my word and then I can see everyone else's words.
Perfect. All right, so you can't see them. If you put a word in, you should be able to, and you should be able to see how you're feeling. Somebody's feeling unwell. Great so far. Busy, good, really great. So let's see how you're doing. Relaxed. Oh, I
Oh,
really like that
technology.
word.
Relax is fantastic.
I'd
Well,
like a
you're,
little bit of that.
yes.
Long.
Oh, bless you. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. We'll move on to the topic, which, so someone has put stressful on there. So busy and stressful, right, you're in the right place. We are going to be talking
Perfect.
all about stress and how important it is to really take a compassionate look at it very shortly. But as we were with you last week, and last week we're talking all about sleep, let us know in the chat box how you've got on in terms of your sleep in the last week. If you were here last week, um, do let us know. It is quite it's such an important thing, and I think also with the changing of the seasons, I don't know, the weather is definitely changing where I am. I don't know if it's changing where you are. We've not had rain in so long, and now it's kind of stormy out there. Um, it interferes with my sleep anyway. I'm not sure if it interferes with anyone else's, but do let us know how you're getting on because we talked about the importance of sleep last time. But on to today's topic, which is all about stress and how it impacts us. Um, Ruth, can you move the slides on or are you?
Yeah,
Okay, here we go.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay. So here we are. So, what is stress? I think we all have a good idea of what stress is, and it's a good. sometimes it's good to have a little moment of reflection on what is affecting you at the moment, reflecting on your triggers and how you're coping. And if it is helpful to you, then please do share in the chat. We've all faced a lot of major stress in the recent years, and it's more important than ever to look at how we manage as individuals. Okay, because without good stress management, we know that our physical health really suffers, our emotional well-being declines, and our risk of weight gain increases. Okay. So our key goals would be to build resilience, to really build that kind of inner fortitude that keeps us on an even keel, and to find healthy outlets to blow off steam. Okay. Um, we in medicine, we talk about chronic stress, which we can think of as an overactive sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, freeze nervous system, this very primitive setup that we have in our body that puts us into that primal run away from the predator kind of uh, nervous system state. Okay. And if our fight or flight is overactive, you can imagine how fatigued we might get, how our sleep might be impacted because our adrenaline is just running the show. Our cortisol is running the show. Those stress hormones are just being pumped out because we're constantly on guard. We're constantly being vigilant. Also, you can imagine that with all this adrenaline pumping, we're going to get more hungry. We're going to start snacking as well. And of course, the whole context of this topic is to do with weight gain and weight, well, actually, our weight loss journey, but the fact that this could impact more of a not so beneficial strategy and show us gaining weight. And today, we're going to be considering some simple techniques to manage stress and protect our health.
Yeah, very much so. It's such an important topic, and one again that a little bit like sleep, it's often very overlooked. So we would love to hear from you, and I'm going to try and run a poll, which seems to be totally impossible, but we'll give that a go. Sorry, it's actually hilarious. Sorry. Um, how are you getting on with stress? Is stress something that affects you, or is it something that you think you're completely oblivious to, or is this something that you're really aware of that is actually affecting you? I think we're going to just see how we go with that. Um, it's just not working for me. Anyway, would just tell us in the chat box, I think, for now. So I think the key thing as well to be thinking about is not only does how this stress affects on us, but actually we often think of stress as being something that's an emotional response. But actually, I will say you were saying about this as well, the sort of chronic low grade stress as well. But I think it's really important to be thinking about what's going on in your bodies if you're overweight or if you are under you have any inflammatory conditions going on or you have any regular pain that you're experiencing. All of those factors could be contributing to stress in your body. So stress isn't just that emotional response. It has a manifestation of all of these impacts, but actually it's also what's going on in our body that can also create stress. So that stress can be quite a combined impact. So it's not only how we're feeling emotionally, it's also how we're feeling physically as well. And all of that is going to contribute quite considerably to our weight and how we gain weight, as well as putting on an additional load of mental strain. So we know that stress triggers the release of cortisol. That increases the amount of blood sugar that we have and reduces how sensitive our insulin is. So all of those things combined lead us to store a little bit more fat. And that can also lead to an increased storage of visceral fat. And we know that that visceral fat is linked to a greater risk of heart disease and stroke. So we know that this is really important for us to all be considering. Our stress response is all to do with how our brain is functioning, how our pituitary is functioning, how our adrenal glands are functioning. So these all systems all work together. And when we're under a lot of stress, like you were saying, Sam, we can get a real sort of craving for high fat and high sugar foods. It tends to be those foods that will come into that craving. And it tends to be that that is a very known factor in sort of regular stress that we can actually just be craving more. We also know that people who are regularly under stress are much more likely not to exercise because actually stress can just totally just take away our sort of ability to stay focused. They're much more likely to eat sort of ready-made foods, sort of processed and fast foods, and also overeating is often combined with stress. Emotional eating can become a learned behavior. So, if you're regularly under stress, it might be that one of the things that happens for you is that you can become a little bit of an emotional eater. It's not something that you can't take control of, but it can just become that habit that when you're stressed, when you're feeling those sensations of feeling overwhelmed or agitated, or however stress manifests for you, one of your learnt behaviors to soothe yourself is to eat. And it could be that you're eating then more of those high sugar, high salty foods like crisps and biscuits and all of those things that sort of bring comfort in that sense. And we know that for many people, if you're having regular stress and you've learned all of those patterns of behaving, that it can almost become a barrier in itself to losing weight. And so this is why it's such an important factor, let alone what's going along in terms of your physiology, which I think you're going to go into in a little bit more detail now, Sam.
Yeah, so we definitely, and there's a couple of comments in the chat box about emotional eating, and I really do um feel you there. And I definitely stress is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so I will endeavor to stay on topic um and not go off on a tangent too badly. But I think because I mean I will definitely put my hand up to being a total stress head and having in the past having really poor strategies to dealing with stress and leading me in my life into spaces that were really not helpful. So I really feel this one very personally that for in terms of weight, we and our habits and the way that we manage stress, it's so important because of course stress is a part of life. Okay, we can't really get away from it. And we have sort of little waves in our lives and we have bigger waves in our lives that the principle remains the same. We have to have a way to blow off steam, to build that resilience, to really have our our center, to really hold our center and like hold that sense of inner strength so that we can weather those waves. But as Ruth said, I'm going to talk a bit about the impacts on the body. So chronic stress, as I alluded to earlier, is that constant feeling of fight or flight, and it might just be humming along in the background. Okay. But we know that this can have major negative impacts on the body because, as Ruth mentioned, visceral fat, this is the fat that goes around our middle. So sometimes you'll notice it on people, on other people, on yourself, maybe that there's your sort of middle, your waistband expands. And you can imagine that if there's been a long-term period of stress or it's kind of a chronic state, then that is more likely to be. So when we're stressed, we're more likely to lay down those fat stores around our abdominal organs. Okay. And we know that those have um, uh, that has connotations for our long-term health, cardiovascular health, and our stroke risk as well. Okay. We know that stress and weight gain are closely linked. And much of this effect is hormonally driven. Okay. Under chronic stress, the body releases more cortisol, which is a steroid hormone that prepares us for that fight or flight. Our cortisol raises our blood sugar by stimulating our liver. Um, so, stimulating the liver to release that sugar because we need that energy to run away from the predator. But obviously, if we're in a chronic state, that's not actually necessary. But our body, which is this incredible primal machine, if you like, is trying to give us that advantage. Okay, so that's the unfortunately because when we're in chronic stress, it's chronically raising your blood sugar because of that cortisol. Okay, and reducing actually your insulin release, so your blood sugar remains high during stress. Okay. Over time, that persistently high blood sugar can lead to insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, and then, of course, diabetes down the line. Okay, type 2 diabetes. In the short term, elevated insulin and blood sugar levels promote weight gain and particularly abdominal fat, as we've both spoken about. Um, And the research shows that cortisol specifically promotes that fat deposition around the abdominal organs. Okay. Um, and stress often triggers unhealthy lifestyle patterns, fatigue, skipping the exercise, opting for fast or processed foods over fresh or freshly prepared healthy meals. This isn't a time for judging anybody. This really doesn't help if we're judging each other. It's reflection and it's being aware. So knowing how stress impacts you, your body, your choices, your habits, what patterns you go into when you feel particularly stressed, that allows you to proactively create a strategy to help you for better coping and long-term outcomes. Okay. Um, and even if your goal is weight stability, even if you've got to your goal weight, you're happy, we want to look at how we want to think about how cortisol can nudge your appetite and cravings and keep noticing how stress changes your hunger cues because that awareness can help you to stay in control. Because there's a lot to this weight loss journey, as I'm sure many, if not all of you are realizing that there are multiple things here that we need to consider. And it's a wellness journey. This is a weight loss journey, but it's also a journey into knowing yourself more, bringing more awareness into your life and in different areas we talk about the things that I feel like other people do not stress enough. Do not, I shouldn't use that word, do not emphasize enough. They do not emphasize, when I look at other weight loss programs, they don't emphasize sleep being so important. They don't emphasize relaxation, resilience, managing our stress being as important as they are. The research is kind of undeniable on how important it is to look at these factors on a weight loss journey. So we really want to help you with that. And thank you for your shares in the chat box. We really do want to get to um, your shares and your questions. At the end of the slides, we will be doing a question and answer. So we will come to as many of those as we can. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So it really helps us if you pop your questions in there on any weight loss topic is fine, or of course, specifically stress.
Very much so. Yeah. And I guess the key thing, this is why it's so important. There are things that we can do. So it isn't just that we're acknowledging that stress is perhaps something that can really hamper our efforts to lose weight or to stay on track in terms of our health goals, but there is a huge amount that we can do to take control, but we have to be very mindful. I think you were suggesting that a minute ago, Sam. That awareness is perhaps the first step. So I think know your stress triggers, normally said triggers. What are your signs of stress? Is it that you're having difficulty concentrating? Are you regularly having headaches? Are you feeling quite agitated inside, feeling on edge or fidgety? Do you get irritable or withdrawn? Do you get a sort of fluttery, horrible tummy that is just not settled? Are you sort of like finding that your legs and you're very fidgety in your body? I think we all have telltale signs. So there are all sorts of things that we can do to bust this stress. So things like activity, like walking, swimming, we know that that can boost our endorphins and can bring that sense of relaxation. Even just getting outside, maybe not on a day like today, although actually, if you got adequately dressed in a raincoat that's pouring here, that actually could just make you feel completely relaxed. Just actually focusing on the weather and managing, being out in such horrible weather can be actually just take your attention away from all of the stress in your life. Breathing exercises, we're going to share one with you in a minute. We know how this can be really helpful at calming our nervous system down. Sleep, we talked a lot about sleep last week, but we know that sleep is one of the key fundamental pillars to help manage stress. So if that's something that's eluding you, do have a look at the replay if you weren't able to join us last week. Eating is fundamental, and we'll go through how to eat because I would say follow the core meal plan or follow the core GLP-1 meal plan if you're taking a medication. Really think about how you're going to put your food together. And I think when we're stressed, simplicity is absolutely fundamental. So maybe make a little menu plan, maybe shop to the menu plan, make sure that things that are within reach are going to really work for you in terms of balancing your blood sugar. so that you have better energy. You're going to naturally have less cravings, and that can really help also to support your mood. So, those are really key things. You need to be thinking all about the elements of that. So, if you want me to go into that in any more detail, I'm very happy to. If you're snacking, if you find that you snack more when you're stressed, then maybe that is a time that you need to think, okay, I'm likely to snack, rather than thinking I'm not going to snack, and actually be prepared with some healthy snacks. So things like some peanut butter, some oatcakes, some almond butter, maybe a few dried apricots and some almonds, or a hard-boiled egg. Some people love eating hard-boiled eggs. They can be fantastic as a little snack. Some hummus, all of those things that are going to really help keep that balance and keep the steady energy. If you tend to go for the sort of high sugar foods, like a chocolate bar, it's going to really dysregulate your blood sugar balance. So you're going to end up feeling maybe initially a little bit better, and then you'll have a bigger crash. Your energy will crash, your mood will crash with it. That whole stress and anxiety and agitation that you're feeling could feel suddenly worse again. And then guess what? You're going to lean into the next snack. So it's really important to just be mindfully prepared. I think stress is often part and parcel of life. So we just have to be ready and prepared for it. And self-care is really important, and time out. Even 10 minutes, even 5 minutes in a busy day can make all the difference. Just taking a breather away from your situation, whatever is triggering that stress, is really important. And like you're saying, Sam, I think we've all experienced a lot of stress at different times in our life, and it's just learning how it turns up for you, what happens in your body or in your mind or in your day-to-day life in terms of making you feel perhaps a bit ghastly. Um, and be prepared, because I think being prepared is really important. So, Sam, you're going to talk us through this breathing technique, which I personally love.
Yeah. So let's just take a couple of minutes here, everyone, if you can, if you're able to. If you can close your eyes, even better. Obviously, if you're driving, please do not. Um, just taking a minute just to sit where you are and just relax, closing your eyes and just feeling your weight on the chair, on the surface you're sat on, just letting yourself drop in, closing your eyes. This is just a very simple 4 second square breath work. So we're going to breathe in through the nose, counting to four, holding for four on that full inhale, exhaling for a count of four, holding on that full exhalation for a count of four, and then going back, 2, 3, 4, holding at the top of the inhalation for four, and exhaling, 2, 3, 4, holding, 2, 3, 4, inhaling, 2, 3, 4, holding, 2, 3, 4, exhaling, 2, 3, 4, and holding, 2, 3, 4, inhaling, 2, 3, 4. You can carry on doing that for as long as you like, but I invite you to notice how that kind of breath makes you feel and how it really takes the energy down. So if we're quite worked up, if we're quite stressed out, I used to do this breath in the middle of a busy clinic when I was doing NHS general practice. If I'd had a run of patients and I was actually running late, or the last few were overrunning, and lots of things whizzing around your head, just taking a couple of minutes to get yourself that sort of frantic energy down in the body so that you can then take on the next thing, the next patient waiting in line, from a different space, from not that space of frantic energy, from a space of more calm. It made a big difference to me. And I don't know if you ever did this kind of, I know Ruth used to work in as a nurse as well. She still is a nurse, but working in hospital as a nurse, sometimes it is helpful. Before, I used to do it on home visit, but before home visits, before going
Mhm.
into the patient's home, just to calm self before going in. Um, because there's lots going on in life, and there's lots going on in work, and there's lots going in life. going on in life as well. And sometimes it's all a bit too much. And we can, what would be great was if you would use a technique like this, notice how you feel and notice if that particular craving for whatever sweet treat or crisp packet or whatever is was still there. Is that still as strong if you took 30 seconds, 90 seconds out to do some breathing first? It's a really simple one, 4 4 4 4 square box breathing. Um, can be really helpful. Let us know how you feel and give it a try because I think this is a really good one for like in the field. So in the thick of it when it's all, you know, whizzing around. It's a helpful one. So
Yeah, and I
give it
think
a
what
try.
it's doing is it's calming your parasympathetic nervous system down, isn't it? And just
Yeah.
bringing that sense of calm. And also, I think one of the things I do when I'm really stressed, and I'm sure many people do because I'm not unusual in this sphere, is I tend to breathe more shallowly when I'm stressed. So actually, that box breathing can really just help to get your breathing back into a better rhythm and really help to bring in more oxygen into your system, which can really make a difference. So,
Yeah. And we
yeah.
say, in yoga, we talk about how, the breath connects mind and body, right? So
Mm.
we're kind of, you can look at it from that sort of, yoga perspective, or we can look at it from that side, what we know about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. We would, it's a spectrum, it's a dial. Can't see my hands, but it's a dial. So we want to kind of move the dial back towards the parasympathetic, the rest, digest, heal on one end of the spectrum and fight, flight, freeze on the other side. So we want to move the dial back towards the middle and edging towards that rest and digest when we're in that very heightened state. It can really help us. And then, our hormones come into, you know, reflect what's going on in our body, right? We want to sort of calm down that adrenal response, that adrenaline pumping, that cortisol pumping when it's not overly necessary in that moment. It's not,
And
it,
also, if you find that you can't do the four, do a cycle of three. If you're
oh
finding it
yeah,
difficult to manage
absolutely.
that four, then really, don't struggle. Just do a cycle of three and see how you get on with that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the nutrients that we sort of recommend that you focus on when you're feeling under this level of stress, which perhaps, you know, most people today at the webinar, I imagine for some reason or another, there must be stress going on, whether it's within your bodies and you're experiencing pain, whether you're managing reducing your body weight, whether you've got emotional components going on. So these foods become very important. So your protein we talk about a lot in all of our webinars, and we've got a how to eat webinar coming up in November just to remind you of the key principles. But actually protein is really important. You want to have around a gram per kilogram of body weight per day, and that's based on your current weight, not on your long-term healthy weight. So, and it will reduce as you lose weight if you lose significant amounts of weight. So you get your protein, also protein from both animal and vegetarian sources is really important for everyone to include. Obviously, if you're a vegan, you will stick to your non-animal based sources. That's absolutely fine. Magnesium, there's lots of research that says we have a much higher need for magnesium when we're stressed. So you really need to put some effort into making sure you're eating those magnesium rich foods. So all of the dark green leafy vegetables, the beans, the lentils, the avocados. And the good news is dark chocolate is a good source of magnesium too. And then your B vitamins and your vitamin C, again, when we're under a lot of stress, we tend to utilize those vitamins a little bit more speedily to support all of the physiological processes that are going on in our body when we're under stress. So then again, we can really boost in these other foods so that again, the leafy greens come in for B vitamins as well. And brown rice, we would really recommend maybe some quinoa, maybe some buckwheat, organ meats if you enjoy those, legumes and eggs. And looking at eggs, if you can go for the free range or the happy eggs, they're going to be even better because they have a little bit more of the omega-3 fats in and a little bit more vitamin D in as well. So really worth just thinking about the quality of the food if that's something you can stretch to or is available in your local supermarkets. And then lots of berries and broccolis and citrus fruits as much as possible in terms of just really bringing that balance. So I hope that makes sense. It's a very simple approach to food, but we really like simplicity because then it becomes realistic, doesn't it? So if you, I don't know, Julia, have you shared the GLP-1 core meal plan and the core meal plan? If not, could you possibly do that? And then do let us know, what are you going to do differently? Let's see if Slido can work. It would be almost a miracle, I think, right now in my day if it did. So that would be hilarious. Let's see. Uh, no, I don't think that question's available to me right now. So tell us in the chat box then, what are you going to do differently this week? What would you like to do? What do you think, based on what we've been talking about today and managing your stress, you would like to do? And do put your, oh, let's just see, where are we now? Okay. Yeah, do put your questions into the Q&A box, and you can also put them on the Slido section as well. And just to remind you, we've got a few webinars coming up. We're trying to be here every week. We don't really have any bank holidays coming up over the next couple of months, so we should be here most Mondays. So next week we're looking at our metabolism and how we can support that for more successful weight loss. We're doing the How to Eat webinar on the 3rd of November. And then we've got a whole new webinar that we've been sort of requested a few times, looking at how we manage our weight around if we have a diagnosis or a suspicion that we might have some ADHD as well, or have some of those issues going on. So do please join us for those. To sign up, we will be sharing the link. So Julia, if you can share the link for signing up. Lots of people are going to be doing the breathing. You'll be pleased to hear. Thinking about the snacks and breathing more. Um, uh,
Great.
Somebody's saying they've lost a lot of weight, but your sugar levels are high. Okay, what are you going to do about that? Try following the core meal plan, I would recommend, and really think about the glycemic load of your food. So really think about eating the foods that sort of don't release their sugars so quickly, that are slower in releasing their sugar. It is really an important thing to think about. So look at the glycemic load, look at the glycemic index. Glycemic load is sort of slightly interchangeable. Go a little bit lower on the sort of processed carbs as much as you possibly can. Really get that protein and those fruits and vegetables in. Go for the low glycemic. So all of the colourful fruits and vegetables are going to be lower in sugar than the sort of like vegetables that are below ground vegetables. So the things that grow under the ground, so like parsnips, potatoes, things that we dig up, if you even think about whether things are grown on a bush or underground. But the ones that we dig up tend to be higher in the sugar element. Great. So somebody's going to be planning. Oh, I like the planning of the healthy snacks. Well done. I think we often say, the long-term aim with snacking would be try not to snack. Maybe think about snacking only one a day, once a day, or maybe snack not at all. But I think realistically, if you're in a bit of a state, planning is much better. So yeah,
Yeah. And to have those options,
yeah,
like Ruth that you mentioned earlier, to have the options that aren't chocolate bars, so maybe some nut butter and an oat cake, or
yeah.
and the things that you will enjoy, but not that won't give you that sugar high and the crash afterwards. So you'll be chasing your tail in terms of blood sugar over the day, which is again our physiology that kind of leads us on that merry dance over the day if we start it that way. So that's great. We've had some great comments actually. I'm so glad that so many people like the 4x4 breath. It's such a useful one. I can't tell you. How like even doing it just for that, we did it for maybe 20 seconds and I felt a difference sort of straight away, just reducing it. It's such a good one, and I think it's used. I think when I learnt it, I think I was told it was used in the army, and all these you know military folk find it very useful in obviously very high stress situations. So why, if it works for them, it will work for us.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. I love it. I was like sitting there just thinking, oh, it's just perfect. We should maybe do it in every webinar. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
perfect. So a question that came in through the chat is, are there any tests to check of visceral fat? There's a really simple thing that you can do at home, and you can just get a tape measure and measure your waist circumference. So there's a really, if you look at the British Heart Foundation website, I think they've got some really helpful information on there about visceral fat and waist circumference and healthy waist circumference. But for a man, any waist circumference that's greater than 94 centimeters means that you are increased risk. You're carrying a little bit too much fat around your middle. That's an indication that your visceral fat is higher than optimal. And for a woman, it's anything over 80 centimeters. I think that probably needs to be proportional to height. So if you're a very tall person, that may be that your waist circumference would potentially be slightly more if you're female. But yeah, it's really worth just thinking about that. And when you do your waist, do it on an exhalation breath rather than an inhalation. There's no point in cheating ourselves with the figures. We don't have to share it with anyone else that we don't want to. Make sure you're not using a very old and stretched tape measure for the people who wear the sort of low slung jeans, or for men who tend to wear their trousers a little bit lower. That isn't where your natural waist is. Your waist is sort of like where your crease is. When you crease over to one side or the other, that's where your waist is. So do a little bend over, find where your waist is, and measure there. That can be really helpful at just understanding the visceral fat. Oh yes, Sam, and Sam has got a recording, haven't you? The Shavasana that you do for us, um,
Mm,
the sort of sleep Shavasana, which you can
yeah,
download as well. So if
which
you
you can
like
download.
Sam's voice, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. If it's there, last week I know there was a problem with the link, and there might be a
Oh,
problem with the link this week. Um, but Julia, if you wouldn't mind, if you could share that sleep shavasana. I don't know if anyone else is aware there's been some like global problems with some IT stuff for lots of people, and I hope that the link works, but they're rushing around fixing it. So I hope that the link works for the sleep shavasana. That can be another really good one for stress. It's a full body relaxation. It's basically at the end of a yoga class, that we always do the corpse pose, that sort of full body relax. The most important pose in yoga, just to the yogis really understand relaxation and how important it is for the health of the body. And I know this is all about weight loss, but we're really talking about health and longevity and living as well as we can for as long as we can. That's what the aim is. We are just sifting through the questions in the chat box. So let me just have a little look. If anyone has any questions, it's really much easier for us to find them in the Q&A box. If anyone has on there. Um, Okay, there's one here. Often when I'm stressed, I feel I deserve a treat, something that is not helping my progress. Do you have any recommendations to avoid that? That's a really good awareness to have, that you're recognizing, oh, I deserve it because I'm having such a rubbish time with X, Y, or Z. What to do instead? So what else could you give, if you think, okay, the treat might be at the moment you're sort of, I don't know, reaching for a chocolate bar, what could it be instead? So could there be a bit of planning that goes in to know that, what, I'm going through a stressful period, or, things happen day to day. We all have lives, we all have things going on. Um, right, what can I put in my shopping basket that will still give me some, I will still enjoy, but won't give me that massive spike in my blood sugars and derail all of the efforts that I've made to support my weight loss. So Ruth had some great suggestions earlier. I really like apple slices with peanut butter or almond butter. That's really nice. You could have, there's so many things, Ruth, and my mind has of course gone blank now of things that you could
nuts.
have.
Yeah,
Nuts. So
completely.
like maybe two or
Almond.
three dates with like whole walnuts in them. I love that. That's just so delicious to me. Um, and it's also about changing our taste buds, because actually dates are very sweet. I would really stick to two or three because they are high in sugar, but they're also high in fiber, so they're not all bad at all. And
You tend
having
to
a
find the
walnut
mature
inside.
dates are slightly less rich in sugar, aren't they? So maybe some
Yeah.
Greek yogurt, I think, is a great snack. Maybe with some berries, because you've got some healthy fats, you've got the protein, you've got some. lovely vitamins and minerals from your berries as well. So, just really simple things, anything that you enjoy as well. Obviously, we want you to be enjoying healthy foods, so we might find that we have to re-educate ourselves from, the treat mentality is maybe we need to start thinking, okay, what's a real treat? Now I'm on this health journey. What do I actually want as a treat? Because actually, do I actually want to eat this chocolate bar or this box of crisps, or do I want to eat something that is actually going to support my health journey? And I think we maybe need to change our mindset around all of those, just our learnt behaviors, isn't it, Sam? If we've learned
Totally.
that we
Yeah,
eat chocolate buttons when we're stressed, then guess what? We're going to eat chocolate buttons when we're stressed. I know that sounds a little bit simple, but it's true. It's actually true. And for people who are in this maintenance phase as well, I know we've got a couple of people joining us today who are in the maintenance phase. This is just as important because this is about keeping your hormones balanced. So we want to keep that balance as much as we can. If you start getting an imbalance in your hormones, or if your insulin sensitivity shifts or your blood sugars become higher, then that's when all the cravings come in, when the appetite regulation goes out the window, and when actually mindset, we give ourselves permission that when we're stressed, we know we're going to eat the wrong foods. Well, the more often we tell ourselves that story, the more often that story is going to turn up and happen for us. So we do need to change the script in our heads as well, I think, don't we, Sam?
absolutely, absolutely. And that breaking that pattern, recognizing when you do it and realizing and being like, "Ah, I did something different. I changed the script. I don't have to be run by this old script that is just replaying in my head just because it's a really worn out record and it is not helping me. And I'm in a position where I can take control of my health and my weight loss journey and my health journey. So it's a really good question, what to do because so many of us have that pattern, and I have for sure had that in the past. I will just say that you do get to a point where you can untrain yourself to have this very sweet tooth. Okay. I will say that from personal experience, it is possible, and I'm not special. We can all do it. It just takes a bit of practice and mindfulness of recognizing where it is that I am derailing my own efforts. I could be really good in all the other things. I'm putting loads of protein on my plate, lots of fiber, drizzle of olive oil, all of that. But I have something happens at work and I'm like, oh goodness, I've got to do all of those things again. I just lost this file and it's all gone wrong and whatever. That could be a very stressful thing. And I'm not going to derail all the good things I did because of this thing. Right. I'm going to do some box breathing. I'm going to make sure that I've got those oatcakes and almond butter in the cupboard and I can go for those. And if I do need something just to take the edge off, just to, okay, this is the steps. It's almost like a step down to kind of where I want to be. And then eventually I want to not be turning to snacks to make myself feel better. I think there's lots of ways we can make ourselves feel better. Put on your favorite music, um have your self-care in place so that you feel taken care of, that you are taking care of yourself. I think that's a really interesting concept to think about. How do we take care of ourselves and take that individual responsibility to look after ourselves and not be turning to, processed foods, which we have, we probably all have done that in the past of, turning to junky foods to make ourselves feel better, which is, of course, what they're designed to do. But we know that these are not benefiting us in any way. And we really want to support ourselves going forwards.
If you've been doing that for 10 years, undoing this is going to take quite a while. So, we often speak to people and they feel very demoralized because they got it right, and then they got it wrong. That's really normal. And actually, it's just recognizing that perhaps things didn't work out as you now would like it to. We have to retrain our habits and our brain, and we have to retrain ourselves to put the right things in the cupboard so we can reach them at the right time. It's sort of like actually maybe moving the snacks to somewhere different in the kitchen, or even not having them there if you're not having to have the wrong foods in the house that you don't want for, you can have them. There's no such thing as can't have, but it's sort of like whether you've got the resilience to ignore them when you're feeling rubbish. Somebody's
Yeah.
saying they're relying on ready meals a lot when they're stressed and can't cook. I've been trying to pick brands that are less processed, like Cooks or Charlie Bigham's. And is that okay approach? I think sometimes that's a perfect approach, isn't it? There are other ready meals that are probably that's the cook meals I have looked at them. I think they're relatively okay. I think the only thing I find is they're a little bit low in vegetables. So one thing you could do is just buy a pack of stir fry vegetables and just chuck them in the food and heat it through, or just stir fry them quickly. I just think vegetables, if you've got the extra fiber in there, that's going to keep you fuller, going to really help balance your blood sugars as well. And also, they can be a little bit low in protein. So you do want to just make sure, again, something I've taken to doing over the last week, just because it's cold and I want something really quick and easy for lunch, is I literally buy some ready-made soup. And because I eat chicken, I'm happy to have the chicken, or but you could do this with chickpeas and lentils as well. And I just chop up half a chicken breast and pop that in my bowl of soup. And suddenly I've got a really healthy, very easy, ready in minutes meal. And I think those are the things that can help us win if we have a few of those simple things hanging around. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a good question about craving sugary things. We talk a lot about this in cravings and about how to eat webinar. But basically, what we talk about through this series is balancing your blood sugar. And when you crave sugary things, which is very common, it generally is because you're on a bit of a blood sugar roller coaster. So I'm drawing a kind of roller coaster line. If you imagine a graph, X and Y axis. So if your blood sugar is up and down like this, when you've had your sweet thing, you're up here with your blood sugar, and then your body is desperately trying to pack away that sugar, store that energy. With your insulin, it's trying to store everything away. And what often happens is you overshoot. Your body kind of overshoots, and you end up actually with a little bit of a dip in your blood sugar. So you've gone from very high to actually a little low. Okay. And at that point, you're going to have again that craving for something. You'll be searching around. So it's, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, depending on your digestion, and you will have again that craving for something sugary, that sort of quick fix that will rocket your sugars again. So what we talk about is switching that, which is why we're talking about slightly like looking at if you need to have a snack, looking at them differently, looking at having something that is slow release sugar, like an oat cake. An oat cake will release its sugar very slowly. It will also have protein in it as well. If you have a nut butter with that, that nut butter will have some healthy fats, will also have some good protein in there as well as lots of other things, but those are the main things so that curve on that graph will be much more gentle. So that a much more gentle curve. You won't have this big spike. So should you have had a bar of dairy milk or whatever, you know, that will spike. That will be so easy to digest for your body because those sugars are just immediately available. But your body has to work harder to digest the oatcake and the nut butter. Okay, so that energy is released much more slowly. So you will notice, and I think part of this is again that awareness of noticing how you feel after you've had that snack. You won't get that same wired sugar rush kind of feeling, which is actually not a particularly helpful feeling if you really examine it. You will get a much more slow release energy that will fuel you for longer. And hopefully you'll also enjoy that snack. It won't be an unpleasant thing to eat, because that's another thing. We also, enjoyment of food is also really important to us. It's important to you. We don't want you to be, feel like, oh, I can only have things that are horrible now. That's not true at all. We want you to really look at delicious things that will also really support your weight loss journey and really support that energy balance over the day, and hopefully really take the edge off cravings. And then you can kind of look at also, is the craving physiological, that sugar crash, or is it because you're stressed and you always turn to dairy milk when you're stressed? So there's things that can, is this behavioral or is this physiological? Like examining that can be helpful to you to notice and recognize your patterns so that you are then in a position to make a change. And it's bit by bit, as Ruth said, if this has been decades long, the patterns, they're unlikely to be fixed overnight, they will take some time, and they're going to take patience and self-care and being really kind to yourself, because sometimes it will work brilliantly and occasionally it won't work so brilliantly, and that's okay. You just go again, because it's it's a long game. We're playing a long game.
Yeah. And I'm also just thinking about snacks that you can grab on the go because I think sometimes, then it's sort of like you're out and what do I do now? So nuts, always. Fruit, always. Maybe if you're a meat eater, some sliced ham or some cooked chicken, that can work. They're now selling in some stores some pre-cooked, boiled, hard-boiled eggs. If you like those, they would be perfect. Then there are some sort of cereal bars the market. I think there was a program the other day on TV, wasn't there, about cereal bars? I think a challenge to do at home is to make your own little protein balls. You can do that so easily. You just get some coconut oil, you mix in some ground nuts, and you can put some raw cocoa powder in for the chocolatey fix. You can put a little bit of crushed up date in there to bring the sweetness in. Or you can bring in, I quite like making lemon coconut balls just because I find them really yummy. So use some lemon rind to really give it that flavour. But they're really simple things we can do for ourselves. Also bounce. I don't know if anybody's come across bounce balls. I think they can be good. But when you're looking and buying, just look at the ingredients and make sure you're sort of getting something which is sort of less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 grams. And then you're sort of in a low sugar and look for the protein content because some of these now have reasonable protein content over sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grams per bar, which can be really helpful when you're stuck and you're out. And I think we have to go for that whole reality check. Somebody's saying that they're now having tea and coffee without milk or sugar and having water, and they found that their cravings are much less as a result of that. So thank you for sharing that. Really helpful to know. Somebody's saying, thank you for sharing in the chat box, that they stress over their weight. And as a result of feeling stressed, you'll find that you then emotionally overeat. You are absolutely not alone with that. So, really, thank you so much for being honest and sharing. I think just bringing your awareness for yourself to that and recognizing that's the habit loop you're in and being prepared in your cupboards with some self care. The food becomes your self care. So let's self care ourselves with foods that actually look after our health and go that way around it and see if that helps. That looks almost to me as if we're okay. Thank you, Julia. Somebody was asking for the top tips for stress. Thank you for sharing that, Julia. That's brilliant. Cedar oat cakes, they are delicious. Don't become over addicted to them. Make sure you're putting some nut butters on them as well, or some hummus. They are delicious, but go careful. You can overeat delicious, healthy food as well, unfortunately. So, not that I want you to feel terrible or bad, but I think it's really worth. I'm just thinking, okay, what else can I do? What should I be doing? Should I do some distraction? Should I drink another glass of water? Should I go and get some fresh air? Not going to get much sunlight. So, yeah, just exactly, Carol. You know it. We know it, don't we? So I think, let's see. How has this amazing Slido been today? I think it's been quite tricky from our perspective. What's your experience been like?
Yeah. Do let us know in the chat box. I think maybe we give it another try next week and see if it
Yeah, I
plays ball a
am
bit better.
I'm not here next week, so it'll be over to you, Sam. So
Okay. In that case, we'll wait till you come back. Um,
okay, sorry that you couldn't see it. It's a bit frustrating, isn't it? We are trying just to make it a bit more fun, but if people aren't seeing it, maybe it isn't something that's going to work, and we'll just stick to our usual polls. We do have a feedback link to share with you. So, Julia, I don't know if you can share the feedback link for the webinar, just anything that you'd like to let us know, any information you'd like us to be thinking about presenting for you in these webinars. We're always really happy to be building the content for you. And really, we're 100% here to support you. So we need to know what you need to know because then we can make it even more exciting for you, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know more and more of you guys are getting to the maintenance phase of your weight loss journey. So do let us know because we really want to support people who are maintaining, those who are right at the beginning of their journey, and those who are in the middle. But just let us know because there's those slight nuances that we can share as well if you're maintaining and needing help. But again, really with stress. I think you're probably, hopefully, by the time you get to a maintenance phase, you are aware of the impact that stress has on your appetite and your choices and your movement and all of those things. So, um, I hope that this is helpful to everybody on their wherever they may be on their journeys.
And don't forget, somebody's just mentioned they've got a UTI, so they're not sleeping so well, and they came to the sleep webinar last week. It's a work in progress, isn't it? So hopefully, when you're feeling better, you can start working on that sleep. But if your sleep's being disturbed to go to the loo, it's very difficult. So yeah, so let's just see how it's going with the slide day. We'll try a couple more times if you don't mind bearing with us, just to see if it's fun and something you enjoy and makes it even more fun. But if not, we'll scrap it. Okay, Sam, I think we're done. What do you reckon, everyone?
Yeah, I think if there's no more questions, we will leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for excellent questions and participation. And we really hope we've given you some things to think about and reflect on and be compassionate to yourself about. Yeah, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, and don't beat yourselves up. Remember, we're all works in progress, and it's just the way it goes, isn't it? Life is like this. We're meant to learn and move forward. So, and that's what we're all doing every day. All right, take care, everyone. Bye, Sam. Thanks,
Bye.
Julia.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you.